When the world understands the timeline. I am the savior and also a demon. Someone lifted me up high, while others wanted to kill me. You are the ones who know the future. But the center of the world is still me. This book is also known as The Collapse of the Fire Shadow World, only I don't know the plot. There are already 2 Huoying Wanjun books, one of which is a great masterpiece. Come and get into the pit. Keywords of the novel. Unrestricted Hokage, no pop-ups, Unrestricted Hokage TXT Complete Collection Download, Unrestricted Hokage Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1, Prisoner Bird. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1, Prisoner Bird. It's pitch black and can't see anything. It has been 3 days now, I have only drunk a little water, and my body is extremely weak. You can actually hear people's voices, and the only information captured is words like Lord Hokage, Devil, and Savior. The true identity now is a Hinata clan ninja who should have died in battle on the front line. The bird curse in the cage has been activated, destroying the eyes and brain nerves of this body. Fortunately, he crossed over and took over the body, replacing the original owner's identity. Later, he was discovered among the dead, thinking he was being rescued, but unexpectedly, his whole body was banned, and it has remained so until now. The only information he can confirm at the moment is that he is still in Kiba. And the bird curse imprint on his body disappeared with his eyes destroyed. Suddenly, there was a sound of the door opening, and someone approached him and tore open the bandage on his mouth. I breathed a sigh of relief, feeling my breathing much faster, but my hands and feet were still bound, and my vision was pitch black. Zila match ignition, tobacco burning. Who are you? Apes fly and the sun slay. The voice that spoke was steady and heavy. Sincerely surprised, 3rd generation Hokage. His mind suddenly turned and he asked, Lord Hokage, did I do anything wrong? In a moment, the person in front of him spoke up, when did you have those terrible thoughts? I have a bewildered expression on my face. What terrifying thoughts? The person in front of me seemed to be swallowing clouds and exhaling mist. After a while, I heard him say, a month later, you planned to frame Hinata and successfully ascended to the position of Hinata clan leader. I was stunned in an instant. A month later. He caused Hinata to die. He became the leader of the Hinata clan. He's only 13 years old, he's just suffering from it, and now he doesn't even have a white eye. Why do you rely on yourself? 6 months later, you teamed up with Orochimaru to help him ascend to the position of Hokage. Afterwards, you designed for me to compete with Orochimaru, to reap the benefits of fishing and gain complete control over Konoha. Watergate also died at your hands. I'd like to ask you, Hinata Shin. The questioning sentence after sentence became increasingly profound, and its content also made my heart more shocked. Are you a curse to Kiba now? Silence. The pitch-black world is suffocating and can only remain silent. Lord Huoying, can you foresee the future? The monkey flying sun / did not answer his question, but continued to question, let me ask you, why are you doing this? This kind of question makes it impossible to answer, and it feels like a thick shadow is casting over my heart. After a brief silence, real voices rang out again. Lord Huoying, I don't understand what you mean. I just went out to carry out a reconnaissance mission and encountered a lot of enemy resistance. All my teammates sacrificed. The person in front of me seemed to stand up and remain silent for a while before saying. Not willing to say, right. He seemed to have lost patience, and the door of the room closed again, entering darkness from darkness. My heart sinks again and again, and I can only wait for judgment. Not long after the silence, rustling voices echoed in my ears, buzzing and noisy like white noise. Under extreme weakness, he had no concept of time anymore. He seemed to have slept a moment ago, and when he woke up, he heard the sound of the door opening again. Who? I spoke weakly. Bo Feng Shui Men. With my eyes wide open, I can only depict a gentle and warm blurry image in my mind. This is a kind-hearted person. Right after rolling his throat for a while, he struggled and said, Lord Watergate, I'm dying. Can you give me something to eat? After a while, the rice and vegetable roll was fed into his mouth, and he could only swallow it in small mouthfuls. Hunger swept through, but it gave rise to a stronger desire for birth. After gaining some strength, Shen took a slight breath and said, Master Shuimen, did I do anything wrong? Not yet. Now I looked up and said, what will I do in the future? Shuimen spoke calmly, the whole world knows about you. He remained silent and stared there. The day before you were rescued, those things appeared in everyone's minds out of thin air, all related to your future, and we have to doubt its authenticity. Really? I murmured softly, why, only I don't know. Did I harm many people in the future? He asked again and again. At first, Shuimen was silent, but then he slowly spoke up. You colluded with Orochimaru and voluntarily betrayed our intelligence to Izumi, so that Orochimaru gained enough military merit and reputation to fight for the position of Hokage, but killed thousands of our companions. The meaning is, are these all my ideas? Jin whispered. He is just a moderate person, and if he works hard for Orochimaru, he will probably be despised. If he doesn't have the strength, he can still jump around like this. The only way is to come up with a plan. With no trace of color in his eyes, he looked up at the end of the darkness. If I died in the last mission, I would have been a hero, right? But this seemed to hurt Watergate. He clenched his fist and his voice sank a bit before questioning, I want to know, will you really do those things in the future? I don't know. The tone was truly calm and lifeless. Before being brought back by my companions, I was only thinking that the intelligence my teammates had obtained through their hard work should be useful for this war. They shouldn't have sacrificed themselves in vain, should they? Not long after, he heard Watergate say, they are all heroes. With a pitiful smile, he said, am I alone? Without receiving a response, he silently grinned and quickly restrained himself. Third generation Lord Mu said, in the future, I will take away your position of Hokage, and even personally kill you in the end. Lord Shuimen, do you also want to kill me? Shuimen did not show any anger, but at this moment it was exceptionally calm. In those memories, after the future's true assistants to Orochimaru ascended to the position of Hokage, it sparked a conflict between Orochimaru and the three generations, while also designing to eliminate many obstacles that posed a threat to oneself in the village. This includes him, who ultimately stood in opposition to the village, even Juxinai fell into his hands. But the experience firsthand and the feeling of reading a story are different, and there is no hatred in Watergate's heart. If he loses this war, his fate with Joshinai will definitely not be much better, even more tragic. It can be said that Hinata is really a disaster to the village, but those things have not yet happened. Moreover, in the further future, Hinata Shin led Kiba to conquer the 5 major powers, bringing Kiba to an unprecedented height that Watergate had never imagined. Perhaps in some ways and for some people, the true existence of Hinata is a good thing, but it is currently difficult for Hokage to tolerate. Hinata, do you want to make Hokage? Shuimen asked. I really struggled to sit up, although there was no line of sight, I could still imagine that the other person was sitting there examining me at this moment. He thought of the person in front of him now in the limelight, with countless hopes and radiance bestowed upon him by countless people. I really can't see that light, and it's not just one of them. I just want to live. His really pale eyes were moving, but Watergate couldn't see any emotions. He felt in a daze that if he had to see something, only despair should be right. Perhaps only by peeking into his heart and thoroughly opening him up can one truly understand his true thoughts, as someone who has been identified as a scourge or a villain. But now receiving such treatment is not something that a person who risked their life to bring back intelligence for the village should enjoy at all. Even if there is malice, it only arises now. If all you have for the village is goodwill, the village will not harm you, I assure you. Shuemen finally got up and walked out of the room, only hearing a low voice in the end. You can let Hai in. Hai. Hai in the mountains. In the mountains. I immediately realized something. A sound of footsteps approached and stopped in front of him. What are you doing? Didn't you guess? A strange voice responded to him. Food was handed to his mouth again. Time may be a bit long, you're too weak, eat more. But he spat out the food he had stuffed into his mouth and looked at the invisible person with a pair of pale eyes. My future, will I kill you? After a moment of silence, Hai said, you killed the deer for a long time. Really, then why didn't you kill me? Don't worry, Hai said indifferently. You should be executed soon, but before that, I want to have everything in your mind. New book on the road, seeking to follow up. Pink and tender newcomers, add groups to flirt with. End of this chapter. Chapter 2.2, Oracle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2.2, Oracle Huoying Building. After knocking on the door, Shuemen found that two consultants, Mito Menyen and Zhuan Lai Xiaochun, were also here. The water gate is here. Lord Huoying. Monkey Flying Sun spoke to the two elderly people, alright, you guys go back first. Mito Gate Yen hesitated to speak, but after glancing at Mito Gate, he finally had to get up and leave. Shuemen bowed slightly to the two consultants and watched them leave. They came for the sake of Tuanzang. Waiting for the office door to close, the monkey flies and the sun slays before he can speak. Shuemen is silent. In the future, besides Hinata Shin, another person who will assist Orochimaru is Shimura Tanzo. Selling intelligence to Yenin was personally done by Shimura Tuanzang, but this former teammate of Hokage urgently hoped that the third-generation leader would step down. Now, Jitsuan Tuanzang has also been imprisoned. Have you seen him? Monkey Flying Sun asked. The person in his mouth refers to Hinata Shin. Yes. What do you think? Shuemen pondered, I support the village's decision. I'm asking for your opinion, said Monkey Flying Sun, gently shaking his head, kill, or not kill. His gaze was fixed on the water gate, and his tone intensified. The memories that appeared in his mind out of thin air caused the pain and disappointment in Ape Flying Sun's heart to the extreme. Orochimaru didn't care about the lives and deaths of the villagers at all, and was so ungrateful and ungrateful. Is the position of the fire shadow really that important? Those memories actually strengthened one thing for him. The seat of the fourth-generation Hokage can only be taken by Shuemen. He did not regret choosing Watergate. Watergate was just too young to follow their path in the future, as long as he completely cleared all obstacles for him this time. After a moment of silence, Shuemen asked, Lord Hokage, how do you plan to deal with Senior Orochimaru? The Monkey Flying Sun's expression froze for a moment, and his cheeks sank coldly. Let's first talk about the truth about Hinata, he said. Does Lord Hokage believe that only Hinata is truly the source of all disasters? Ape Flying Sun's gaze flickered as he finally said, I won't let go of anyone who harms the village. I think we should wait until there is a result on Hai's side, Shuemen said. I don't think he knows the future. If it's really a threat, the earlier it's eradicated, the better. Ape Flying Sun John's face was cold and stern. Not only do people want to kill him, but there are also people who don't want him to die. His existence will cause endless trouble. Shuemen was stunned and couldn't help but ask, who? He stopped abruptly halfway through his speech, as if he had guessed the answer in his heart. Just as he was pondering, the office door suddenly burst open with violence, and a beautiful figure burst in, furious. Lord Gungate, please wait a moment. Hinata, really? The first sentence that the blonde young woman came in was a question. Has he died yet? Ape Flying Sun coughed heavily and waved his hand to let the guard who followed in out. Gangsho saw that Shuemen was also there, and his face lit up slightly. Shuemen is also there, he said. A smile appeared on Shuemen's face, greeting him. Master Gangsho. I'm here to ask Hinata about the truth, said Gangsho impatiently as he shouted at the Monkey Flying Sun. The village has its own decision, said Monkey Flying Sun with a calm expression. At this moment Gangsho immediately froze his face and said, what's keeping such a guy alive for? She would only be so angry that in the future she knew, she would become the true plaything of Hinata. And everyone in the world knows about this, how could she accept it? In addition, this Hinata Shin also harmed the people she was close to, such as the third-generation Hokage and Jiraiya, which made Tsunato feel no kindness towards this guy he had never met before. Master Gangsho, Shuemen beside him took the initiative to take the message. The future has not yet happened, and we cannot judge a person based on it. Moreover, since we know the future, those things are no longer predetermined. The current Hinata is still a companion in the village. Companions. This brief word left the other two present speechless at the same time. Monkey Flying and Sun Slaying quickly said, you don't need to ask about the true matter of Hinata. Besides, since you have returned to Gangsho, don't leave anymore. The village will need you in a while. Gangsho's expression softened a bit and he frowned. What does that mean? You will know in a few days. Hinata really felt like he was constantly falling at this moment, bottomless and surrounded by endless viscous substances, making him unable to exert any strength. In a daze, there seemed to be a big hand playing between the heaven and earth in this area, setting aside all obstacles and trying to hold him whole. I really feel that if the other person succeeds, everything about me will be understood and understood. That palm is a cage that he cannot break free from no matter what. This really gave rise to a sense of fear in his heart. He couldn't call for help, couldn't escape, and could only let him brush past him every time and approach him one point at a time. He seemed to hear his own heartbeat, slow and almost suffocating in this bottomless abyss, yet it shook his ears to the point of deafness. The big hand grabbed him precisely for the last time, leaving no room in the sky, tightly gripping him in the palm and slowly lifting him up. And in that moment, the big hand collapsed with a loud roar, and a bright white light seemed to pierce through the black abyss, staining everything around it with brilliance. It was really hard to open my eyes, although I still couldn't see anything. Fortunately my mind cleared up and I gasped for breath like seeing the sun again. Is it you? Suddenly, Yi surprised and deep voice rang out in front of him. Suddenly, there was a third person. How did you get in? Yi questioned again. The person remained silent, and Hinata Shinjing waited for a moment. Feeling a sensation in her heart, she spoke weakly, who are you? The day is changing day by day. His voice responded calmly and forcefully. Hinata grinned lightly and said, what are you doing here? Help you out. Hai, who was standing beside him, said in a deep voice, the sun is changing day by day, you're crazy. Dare to disobey Lord Huoying's orders. This guy is a key criminal in the village. Are you going to commit it? I retorted, with a hint of mockery on my face. Did I do something wrong? Hai sneered repeatedly, don't you already know what you're doing in the future? The future. Does it mean that living now is wrong? A hint of melancholy appeared on his face, followed by Muron. Did you see it? Hai frowned and said, what? My memory. Hai snorted coldly, with a hint of regret and remorse. It's just a little bit close. There was really no expression on his face. At this moment, Hinata, who had been silent for a long time, spoke up again, Your Excellency, Hinata needs you to lead the Hinata clan. Lord Rizu, doesn't he want me to die? Last night, Mr. Rizu died of a sudden illness at home, and we haven't had a chance to report it to the village yet. Hai was stunned at the words and said, You. The true tone was unusually calm, as if Hinata's death had not shaken him at all. Hai was shocked and furious, Hinata, you are rebelling. I want to report to Hokage immediately. He suddenly stopped halfway through his speech when he heard a short muffled sound. Ha ha ha. Hai struggled to make a sound and finally fell to the ground with a thud. He was sealed in his acupoints, unable to move or even speak. Hinata once again spoke up, "True Lord, please lead the Hinata clan, just like in the Oracle, to stand at the pinnacle of this world." Oracle. His true expression was silent, and this place had been silent for a long time. "How can I trust you?" Hinata silently took out a kuwu and fiercely stabbed the person on the ground. Puff. The sharp object pierced through the flesh and blood, splashing warmth onto the real face. He extended his tongue and licked his lower lip, emitting a fishy sensation. "How dare you take action against your village companions," said Jin indifferently. "Go and apologize to Lord Huoying." Hyuga kneels on one knee and responds expressionlessly with a lowered head. "Yes. It's important to follow up on new books, kneel down and beg not to take care of them." End of this chapter. Chapter 3, Chaos. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3, Chaos. In the memory of the future, Hinata did many things. The greatest achievement among them should be the sweep of the 5 great powers, the revolution of the ninja era, the establishment of the world's only empire, and the division of the original 5 great powers into the 5 provinces. The status of the Hinata clan also rose with the tide, becoming the royal family. If there is anyone in this world who doesn't want Hinata to really die, then the Hinata clan is definitely the first. Ape Flying Sun / looked at the Hinata on one knee kneeling in front of him, his eyes icy cold. "What are you saying?" Hinata lowered his eyebrows and lowered his head, making it difficult to see his face clearly at this moment. "Lord Huoying, while visiting Hinata Shin, my subordinate accidentally clashed with Hai and accidentally killed him." "You said. Who did you kill?" "Hai." Ape Flying Sun / instantly fell silent, and soon, endless anger crawled over his old face. "Who allowed you to visit him?" "It was my subordinate who made the decision and came to apologize," replied Hinata calmly. Ape Flying Sun slashed his anger with his eyes wide open, his sorrowful and angry expressions constantly changing on his face. He asked in a hoarse voice, "Why did you do this?" "I had a dream, thinking I saw a more distant future." Ape Flying Sun looked at him expressionlessly, waiting for his next message. "In the future, there will be an extremely powerful destroyer, and only Hinata can defeat it and save the world." Hinata said slowly, "I woke up and lost my mind in a panic. I only wanted to see the truth and seek verification, and then did something wrong that shouldn't have been done." Hai in the mountains, the new generation leader of the mountain tribe, the excellent Shangren in the village, and the right arm of the future Shui men. "I just died like this, at the hands of my fellow villagers. Hastily lost my mind." This absurd reason, of course, the Monkey Flying Sun / could see clearly what was behind it, but at this moment, it still felt a whirlwind. He had a hint of sadness in his eyes and said weakly, "I remember you were at the same time, fighting side by side countless times. Why did you achieve this?" "Yes," said the diurnal difference with lowered eyes. "I am also very saddened and have come to apologize to Lord Huoying. He has fought alongside him countless times and has known him since he was at ninja school. Unfortunately, it is his elder brother who can truly stand shoulder to shoulder with Lu Jiao and Hai. He is just a shadow, occasionally mentioned, and also has identities such as Rizu's younger brother, and the person who separated from Hinata." Ape Flying Sun roared angrily, "Deliberately killing a companion is a capital offense. Capital offense." Hinata remained unmoved and calmly said, "I have a sincere friendship with Hai. It was not intentional to kill him, but Hai died because of me. I have nothing to say. I am willing to lead him to death." The Monkey Flying Sun / waved weakly, and 2 secret agents appeared from the side of Richa's body out of thin air, taking him down. Upon learning the news, Shui men quickly arrived at the ward. Unfortunately, it was still too late. The person on the bed had already been covered with a white cloth, and the water gate was frozen at the door, leaving their whole body icy cold. He walked step by step to the side of the bed and lifted the white cloth from the body. There were signs of soft fist injuries on his body, but he was ultimately cut to death. Gang Shou's figure appeared at the door and spoke calmly. Shui Men turned around in confusion to look at her, and then looked back at the person on the bed. Upon seeing him like this, Gan Shou's expression suddenly became somewhat complicated, and he said with a sense of melancholy, San Dai Mu is waiting for you to make a decision on whether or not to execute Hinata Shin. Soft fist, Hinata Shui Men clenched his fist silently, and a hint of sadness flowed from his eyes. Gang Shou leaned against the door frame and clasped his hands around his chest, saying, everything started because of him. As long as you kill him, you can strangle all those uncertain futures in the cradle. As long as Hinata is executed, perhaps everything will be resolved. Compared to the village, he is just a person, an insignificant person. After a moment of silence, I heard Watergate speak, I will never do anything that puts the cart before the horse. I have my own way of doing it. His voice was incredibly firm, even intensifying. Sacrificing others for the sake of the village was not the original intention of Kiba's establishment. But now many people have deviated from this original intention. Gang Shou sighed silently, whatever you want. Who let the monkey flying sun / have already chosen the water gate. A seemingly perfect fool on the outside, yet extremely idealistic on the inside, Gang Shou silently thought to himself. Shui Men looked at Hai lying there with his eyes closed, and covered him with white cloth again. Hai, you won't die in vain, no one will die in vain. He said to himself like a promise in his heart. In the office of Huoying building, the water gate was suddenly summoned here. This is the military situation sent by Lu Jiu on the front line. The situation is urgent. Shui Men received the letter from Ape Flying Sun / carefully reviewed it, and then frowned. Yunin village, haven't you already withdrawn from the battlefield? Not only that, said the third-generation Fire Shadow Ape Flying Sun in a deep voice, he said as he handed out the second letter. It was delivered around the same time. Shui Men finished scanning at once and instinctively clenched his hand. Sand hidden. The content of the first letter is about Yunin village suddenly deploying troops to suppress the situation, openly demanding that Kiba immediately execute Hinata Masamune, otherwise they will launch another war against Kiba. The second letter is a handwritten letter from the fourth-generation leader Huoying Luo Sha, with similar meanings. He regards Hinata Shin as a curse in the ninja realm and demands that Kiba dispose of it. The text conveys a sense of threat. This ninja war has lasted until now, and all countries have exhausted their energy. Even one of Shuimen's own students sacrificed themselves in the war. Kiba originally thought that as long as the current war with Iwamura was ended, peace could be achieved. The monkey flying sun slayer has already prepared to abdicate after the war ends. What's your decision? Monkey flying sun / asked as he stared closely at the water gate. Returning to the multiple choice question that was thrown to Watergate at the beginning of the monkey flying sun / Hinata Shin, kill, or not kill. Shui Men looked at the two secret letters in his hand and couldn't help feeling a bit dazed. Yen-in, Yun-in, Sha-in. Although Wu-in has not taken any action now, he cannot guarantee the future. Can Mai withstand such pressure? Previously, killing Hinata was really due to internal pressure, and Shui Men felt that a village should not be like this. The people who want Hinata to die now are the enemies outside, what are you hesitating about? Monkey Flying Sun suddenly asked. Do you really think that I wanted to execute Hinata because I had the idea of sacrificing someone to save the village? Said Monkey Flying Sun with a cold smile. Shui Men clenched his fist and said, Lord Huoying. Monkey Flying Sun's face remained unchanged and said, just do what you want to do, as long as you don't regret it yourself. What are the opinions of the others in the village? The Monkey Flying Sun slashed his cheek and said coldly, I am Hokage. At this moment, a secret agent suddenly appeared beside him and whispered a few words to his side. Ape Flying Sun's face changed greatly in an instant, and he stood up on the ground. Shuimen was surprised and said, "Lord Huoying." At this moment, Monkey Flying Sun's face was gloomy and almost dripping water. Hinata died of a sudden illness at home, and the Hinata clan demanded the recall of all Hinata clan ninjas from the front line to the village to attend the funeral. End of this chapter. Chapter 4, Breaking the Cage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4, Breaking the Cage. Last night, there was an autumn rain, and the courtyard was littered with fallen leaves. An old tree swayed in the wind, appearing somewhat desolate. Black cloth was hung inside the territory of the Hinata tribe, and outside the spiritual hall being built, Ape Flying Sun stopped here. Many people were in a hurry, with a gentle and beautiful woman dressed in black mourning clothes kneeling at the bottom. Monkey Flying and Hinata remembered her as Hinata's fiancée Ae, Hinata Aina. It is said that they grew up together with Hinata as childhood sweethearts. Perhaps this war will end, and the two were originally planning to get married. He turned around and left here, heading towards another mansion. Hinata Taiguei was the father of Hinata and Hinata's two brothers, the previous head of the Hinata clan, and also the only remaining member of Hinata's lineage. Lord Hokage. Hinata Taigui's aged face was filled with respect as he saluted the visitor. "I haven't seen you for some days, Taiguei," said Monkey Flying Sun calmly, and then walked up to the main seat without hesitation. "Lord Huoying is busy with the war and dares not bother." Hinata Taiguei bowed his head and responded, taking the initiative to add tea to him. White air lingers along the tea cup, adding a touch of warmth to this cold and quiet room. Two elderly people sat opposite each other, both saying that the older a person gets, the more kind they become. This is how it is with Hinata Taiguei. This elderly person has a kind face and eyes, with no hint of aggression in his aura. Originally, it should have been the same on Ape Flying and Sun Slaying, but Hinata Taiguei felt that the temperament of this third-generation Hokage was even colder than before. "I guess so," suddenly realizing that my former confidants were all those with ulterior motives, those future memories were undoubtedly a warning bell ringing in my heart for Ape Flying Sun Slayer. Yes, the war is difficult, many things have been delayed, and many people have gradually become estranged, said Ape Flying Sun calmly, taking a light sip from his teacup. In terms of political affairs, there are two advisors, Yan and Xiaochun, to assist. On the front line, there are also Lu Jiu, Zelaya, and Shuimen. Huoying Lord is still lucky. Hinata Taiguei smiled gently. Moreover, Shuimen is so outstanding, and we will definitely be able to smoothly shoulder heavy responsibilities in the future. Monkey Flying Sun put down his teacup and said, "Do you have a future for the leaves of wood? Let's talk about it separately." Hinata Taiguei's face showed surprise and said, "What does Lord Hokage mean?" Ape Flying Sun placed the two secret letters on the low table, and Hinata Taiguei picked them up and read them separately. "Yun-in and Sha-in plan to use force against us again, but Mu-yi is already a strong shot and may not be able to withstand it. There's such a thing." Hinata Taikyu frowned as he looked at the contents of the letter. After a moment of silence, Hinata Taikyu said again, "If sacrificing only one person can bring peace, Lord Hokage should consider the overall situation." Ape Flying Sun slanted and said, "This person is your Hinata clan member." "For the sake of the village, the Hinata clan is bound to do so," said Hinata Taiguei sternly. Monkey Flying sighed and said, "The Hinata clan has encountered a great change, and family matters are important. I have sent someone to the front line to send a message, calling for all the ninjas of the Hinata clan to come back and offer condolences to Hinata." Hinata Taiguei showed a surprised and puzzled expression. "Lord Hokage, what is this? It is precisely at a time of war that they should be serving on the front line. Isn't it because you requested that all the ninjas of the Hinata clan come back to attend the funeral? Asked Monkey Flying Sun Saber in confusion. Hinata Taigue's face changed for a moment, and he let out a heavy sigh. I have no idea about this matter, let alone do such a reckless thing. The Monkey Flying Sun's eyes flickered slightly as he calmly said, Oh. I am already getting old, my eyes are dim, and Rizu suddenly passed away. My clan is no longer what I say. You are from the Zong family. Yes, but if I had no voice, Hinata wouldn't have had any separate sex, Lord Hokage, wouldn't he? Ape Flying Sun lightly tapped a finger on the low table and asked in a moment, who is in charge of the Hinata clan now? The ability of daily differences is very convincing to everyone, said Higashi Taiguei. Or maybe. Forget it. He changed his tone, but suddenly stopped halfway and shook his head slowly. Ape Flying Sun naturally knew which name he was going to say, and secretly sneered in his heart. He wanted to continue asking or who and poke through the window paper, but after the silence, this thought was suppressed. At this moment, the bureau couldn't tolerate his impatience. Ape Flying Sun slashed his gaze and caught a glimpse of the black cloth hanging at the door. He calmly said, Rizu is also extremely outstanding among his peers. Hinata Taiguei just let out a Rizu is his biological son. He should be buried in the hero's resting place, and his name should be engraved on the consolation tablet. Thank you, Lord Huoying. Ape Flying Sun rubbed the tea cup, drank the remaining tea, and put it back on the table. On the way back, I passed by the building of the spiritual hall. The woman who was originally inside now walked out and gently bowed to the Monkey Flying Sun / Lord Hokage, Hinata Ayanami greeted. There are many affairs within the clan, and the day difference has disappeared for 2 days without a trace. If there are no tasks assigned to him in the village, please inform Lord Huoying that he is needed to take charge of the affairs at home. Ape Flying Sun slashed his gaze at this gentle woman, dressed in black mourning clothes, with a low eyebrow and drooping head, and a mournful expression in his eyes. Anyone who saw this would probably have pity for such a weak woman. But he just gave a faint and left this black family everywhere. #Shuemen once again arrived at the secret room where Hinata Shin was imprisoned. The dark areas here were replaced, and no one was allowed to enter or leave without the permission of Hokage. When I saw this young man again, he was even weaker than last time. There was a hanging bottle next to him for intravenous infusion, and his lips turned white in the dimly lit room. Is it Lord Shuemen? The other party seemed to recognize it from the footsteps and spoke up voluntarily, with a lingering aura. Shuemen did not sit down, but stood in front of him. Lord Shuemen, can you let me out now? Shuemen's gaze was somewhat complicated, and he asked, have you guessed what the village will do to you? A puzzled expression appeared on his truly weak face. Didn't Lord Hai already read my memory? Is it difficult? After reading my memory, does the village still consider me a threat? Said Jin bitishly. Hai died. Why, said Jin with a dazed expression on her face, he was killed by someone. I couldn't help but ask, isn't Lord Kahai Shangren? He's an elite ninja from the village. Who can kill him? Shuemen had a sorrowful expression on his face. A ninja, who can kill him only when facing peers, can we not set our guard? After a brief silence in the narrow room, the sound of the water gate rang out again. No one has read your memories, but I choose to believe you because you are a companion in the village. In previous missions, you were just like your sacrificial teammates, heroes. Bound with his hands and feet, unable to see everything, he listened to the sound coming from a high place and remained silent for a moment before responding, thank you, Lord Shuemen. Shuemen continued, the village also trusts you. Really, join my team and guard the village with me. Can I have a request? Zhen slowly lifted his head and opened his pale eyes, as if staring at the water gate. Give me a pair of eyes that can see the world clearly. End of this chapter. Chapter 5, Cold Rain. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 5, Cold Rain. Noera Lin's medical level is not particularly top-notch, and among many medical ninjas, she can only be considered lower middle. After all, she is still young and does not have excellent medical ninja teachers to guide her. Fortunately, some battlefield medical and emergency work is still competent. In those memories of the future, Hinata Makoto encountered enemy ninja while on a reconnaissance mission, and all but himself died in battle. Noera Rin and Kakashi went to search for support and found Hinata Makoto, who was seriously injured and on the brink of death, among the dead. Due to the close proximity to Izanari's camp at the time, in order to avoid the burden of losing sight and dying from serious injuries, Noera Lin changed his eyes for Hinata Shin after emergency treatment. That was just a pair of ordinary eyes taken from his deceased teammate, but it made Hinata truly an outsider in the Hinata clan. After everyone became aware of those future memories, everything changed. Hinata was personally led by Shui men to retrieve him and has been imprisoned to this day. When suddenly notified to participate in the surgery for Hinata Shin's eye replacement, Lin was a bit confused and went to ask her teacher. "Don't worry, just focus on doing your own thing." Watergate comforted her. Yaira Lin felt uneasy in her heart. She had no idea what had happened in the village these days, but she learned from Kakashi that the Hinata Shin, which had been talked about by everyone all day recently, might only have a dead end. In the future, he has killed too many people, including his own teacher. What Noera Lin couldn't understand the most was that she was willing to go to her true underground lover that day in the future. How could I possibly? She once had the intention of explaining something to Kakashi, but when faced with Kakashi, she had no way to talk about it. Her thoughts seemed to have always been wishful thinking. In the dense forest around the edge of the wooden leaf, Lin, along with several medical ninjas, walked into a hidden underground cave hidden by a sealed barrier under the guidance of a secret agent, carrying various medical equipment and tools. The light here was a bit dim, and Lin, who had been walking all the way, was thinking to herself that the place of detention was so secretive that she chose to go outside the village. Walking through the stairs and corridor, she finally met the legendary person in a narrow room. Devil, Savior, Calamity, Villain, Chosen Son. In these days, various labels have been placed on this person. But what Lin saw was only a skinny young man, with his hands and feet bound, and a clear sealing technique. His eyes were desolate, and he seemed to be in a state of imminent death. Lin's heart inexplicably tightened. "Is it this young man who fears countless people, Hinata Shin? We have been ordered by Lord Hokage to undergo an eye replacement surgery for you." The young man slowly looked up, his sickly face showing a wave of expression, his pale lips moving slightly, and his voice responding very softly, "Thank you." Within the Daming Prefecture. Do the countries of Thunder and Wind really want to use force against us? Faced with the crowd of Konoha, the daimyo of the Fire Kingdom showed a somewhat restless expression. "Judging from their current movements, there is little possibility of a withdrawal," replied Monkey Flying Sunday. Daming sighed lightly and said, "After fighting for so long, I thought it was almost over." "Your Excellency, it's not that we want to continue the war, it's that they are insatiable." Daming closed his folding fan and tapped it rhythmically in his hand, saying, "That's what I'm saying. You also need to consider your country. What do you plan to do with Hinata Shin?" Upon hearing this, Bo Fengshui immediately said, "We have carefully interrogated him and confirmed that he is not threatening." Daming's movements paused and his eyes narrowed slightly. Bo Fengshui lowered his head and continued, "I will always take him by my side and lead him." "Your Highness, the future can be changed." Several ministers sitting opposite couldn't help but whisper. Daming then turned his gaze to the Monkey Flying Sun and said, "Third-generation eyes, is that what you mean?" Ape Flying Sun Slayer's expression remained unchanged and he said, "Hinata almost died on the front line to carry out a reconnaissance mission. He was a hero and was a meritorious figure in both the land of wood and fire. Moreover, we have read his memories and he has no ill intentions. Kiba still regards him as a companion." Daming sneered lightly, seemingly disdainful of these words, and turned to saying, I remember that Yun'in and Sha'in have already set conditions for withdrawal, as long as Hinata is executed. Monkey Flying Sun beheaded but said, Your Highness, compromise cannot solve any problem. Our fire country is the largest country. When will we back down in the face of threats? Today they demand the execution of Sun Xiangjun and we will follow suit. What if they let you abdicate tomorrow? Huoying, you dare. The minister beside him jumped up and pointed at the ape Flying Sun slaying angrily. Daimyo didn't seem angry, but on his slightly feminine face, he looked at the monkey Flying Sun in thought. 3 generations. He had known this Hokage for a long time and had a better understanding of his temperament. He had thought that the monkey Flying Sun would plead with him in a low voice like before and repeatedly assure him of something like that. But the behavior of the monkey Flying Sun Slayer at this moment was somewhat unexpected to him, but it was somewhat like the Shimura Tuanzang of Kiba. Monkey Flying Sun beheaded his face and said coldly, I'm just explaining the facts. If you want to fight back at that time, it's likely that the ninjas of Kiba will only remember your decision to execute their companions in exchange for peace. Daming glanced askance and said, Do you really consider Hinata Shin as a companion? In the future, Hinata really harmed 3 generations of eyes, killed Bufeng Shuimen, and even forcibly seized Shuimen's lover. Daming really doesn't believe what Ape Flying Sun said in his heart. Your Highness, Shuimen spoke with a firm voice. The original intention of the first generation of Mu Huiying's establishment of Mu Yi was to protect the people in the village. If we sacrifice someone in the village to protect the village, then what we protect is just an empty shell. Daimyo remained silent for a while. He couldn't have really had a falling out with Kiba, at most it was just pressure. Do you guarantee to win? He asked Watergate again, looking at the young man with blonde hair in front of him. He had also heard of countless glorious deeds of the other party and knew that he was the pillar of the future of Kiba. Ape Flying Sun calmly asked, when did we lose? Next to the consolation tablet is a group of tombs, known as the resting place of heroes. Heroes who sacrificed their lives for the village in the war will be buried here. During wartime, there were many people who came here to offer condolences and sweep graves on weekdays, but the light rain today left only 2 figures in this place. The old man with white hair was slowly and meticulously carving a name on the monument with a delicate carving knife in his hand, with a determined and serious expression. The young man next to him held an umbrella and patiently watched his own teacher doing handicrafts. Hand carved the names of the heroes on the consolation tablet. Both their master and disciple regarded it as a great honor, and the young people also longed to one day take over this job from their teachers. Watching my own teacher complete the final cut, I wiped it with a damp cloth and then wiped it back and forth with a dry cloth a few times. The sun is full and full. The young man looked at the newly carved name on the consolation tablet, which he had heard of and belonged to the adults of the Hinata tribe in the village. Moreover, it also appeared in that future memory that he was murdered by Hinata Masahiro and Orochimaru, and was falsely accused of selling village intelligence. Unexpectedly, in reality, this adult from the Hinata family suddenly died. The Hinata family hasn't come alone, have we notified them? He couldn't help but speak up. In the past, when they carved their names on the memorial tablet, most of their relatives and friends would come to watch and witness. On such days, the Hinata clan, still a wealthy family of Kiba, did not receive a single person. This adult is really lonely, the young man whispered again. A little light suddenly pierced through this boundless and dark world. I have long forgotten how long I have been silent here, and my soul seems to be drowning in the depths of the abyss. The long-lost and unfamiliar light entered without warning, causing him to instinctively feel frightened. But soon he realized that there was no need to be afraid. The light belonged to him, and the darkness was given by others. He felt a piercing sensation, which came from his eyes. In an instant, he returned to the real world from the abyss, and through a blurry barrier, he felt the movement of light and shadow. You can try opening your eyes now. A voice rang in my ear and I opened my eyes. The narrow darkroom was crowded with several medical ninjas, and there was also a dark figure standing at the entrance. He lay in bed, taking in all of this. There wasn't much reaction, and the medical ninja next to him asked, "How do you feel?" "Very good. It is normal for the eyes to feel pain or discomfort. As long as the vision is not affected, there is no problem and it will gradually recover." "Well, thank you very much." Looking around once again at the people who had just undergone surgery for themselves, I caught a glimpse of a petite young girl who stood out among a group of adult ninjas. Looking at her appearance and attire, a name quickly popped up in his heart. Noera Lin. There was no communication between the two, and Noera Lin was just silently watching him. After giving further instructions, the leading medical ninja packed up the various medical equipment in the narrow room and left together. Wait until the narrow and dim space here becomes silent again. From that entrance, another secret agent walked in and whispered a few words to the secret agent guarding the door. Finally, the secret agent spoke to Zhen. "Hinata, you can go out now." At this moment, his mind was truly calm. His figure swept past the two shadows and began to move forward along the passage. Due to his weak body, he walked slowly every step. Suddenly, a cluster of light appeared. At the end of the road, endless lights rushed in, accompanied by cold air. Hua, it's the sound of rain. I really saw the muddy ground, followed by a forest that was raining. Countless figures stood neatly in the rain, each dressed in pure black robes, like mourning clothes. A pair of sparkling white eyes gazed at him, and when he appeared, infinite enthusiasm emerged, like the fire that the rain could not extinguish. Suddenly, these people all knelt on one knee and bowed their heads respectfully. Cold intent hit her face, and Hinata greedily took a breath of air and heard their voices. "Your Majesty. In late autumn, the forest has lost its greenery, and this neat pitch-black area appears particularly solemn and dignified." At the forefront of the kneeling Hinata tribe, there stood a woman in a black kimono, dignified and gentle, with a beautiful appearance. She held an umbrella in one hand and stared closely at the young man in front of her, as well as his dark eyes. She took the initiative to approach Xinjin and propped her umbrella over Xinjin's head, whispering softly. "Your Excellency, welcome back." End of this chapter. Chapter 6, Destiny. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Hinata Taiguei nodded lightly and left without stopping any longer. The scroll provides a detailed account of everything related to the bird's curse seal in the cage, including casting, unraveling, and casting spells. The scroll itself also contains a special sealing technique, which burned itself shortly after being opened and read. With it, you can completely control the Hinata clan, Hinata Ayanami said on the side. "Isn't Hinata already choosing to follow me? What else do I need it to do?" Zhen said calmly. "We must always prevent some people who have ulterior motives," Hinata Ayanami reminded. Alienation. I really glanced sideways. Hinata Aya was stunned, as if she understood the true meaning behind the words. If there were no birds in the cage and no hatred, how could the day difference have taken this step? Separation would not be so fanatically regarded as a god of salvation. She looked at the ashes of the burnt scroll in her true palm, which was the source of all hatred. Ayanai quickly stepped forward, bent down on the bed, and held on to Zhen's hand. At this moment, the mature beauty's half-body seemed to be oppressed by the young man. Her originally gentle face blushed, and there was a glint in her fair eyes. Her breathing also became slightly heavier, and she exhaled like a orchid. "Your Majesty. Put a curse on me." "Why?" really asked. "To let you know my sincerity." Ling held her true hand and slowly placed it in her heart. Through the fabric, I truly felt the beating of her heart. "Your Majesty." The next day. Shuimen specially came to visit Hinata Shin. "Lord Shuimen. Get off the bed and respectfully greet. Shuemen smiled gently and said, don't be too reserved, there's no need to call me that. Zhen shook his head and said, I respect you in my heart, that's why I want to call you that. Shuemen pondered and said, really, don't think I saved you. The village won't mistreat any of its companions. Zhen nodded and said, Lord Shuemen, I have heard about everything that has happened these days. It is normal for the village to have doubts about me, and I can understand it. It would be great if you could think so. Now that Yunin village and Shayin village are invading again, I also need to hurry back to the front line. I hope you can come with me. Junwen Yen looked surprised and said, Yunin and Shayin. Aren't they both already withdrawn from the battlefield? As he spoke, his expression changed for a moment and he said, is it difficult? Because of me. Shuemen was constantly paying attention to his true reaction, and upon hearing this, he comforted, you don't have to think too much. War never starts with just one person, it's just irrelevant rhetoric. What's afraid of them is that Kiba has never lost. Zhen lowered his head and said, Lord Shuemen, I listened to everything from you. Please follow up on the reading. End of this chapter. Chapter 7, My Life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7, My Life. The serious injury that Jinyuan suffered on the front line has been cured under the treatment of medical ninjas, mainly due to the decline in physical function caused by the period of imprisonment, requiring a period of recuperation. Hinata Aya wanted him to rest and recuperate in his clan, but Shuemen was an extremely important fighting force and spiritual leader on the front line. It was impossible for him to stay in the village for so long, so he had to follow him to the front line. When he left the village, he also saw all the members of the Watergate team. Chimu Kakashi and Noera Lin. Kakashi is very famous, with many labels such as Genius Ninja, Son of White Teeth, and Golden Shining Student, and has attracted much attention in the village. The black mask covered most of his face, and the slanted forehead only had one right eye outside. Before, Chen had no interaction with this highly popular peer, at most he had only seen each other from afar. However, in the future, Kakashi will be his very capable subordinate. And when Kakashi saw the truth, his eyes became particularly complicated. This is Kakashi, this is Lin. Watergate took the initiative to introduce himself. Hello, I'm Hinata Shin. Kakashi didn't speak, he looked a bit cold and stern, with an aura of no strangers entering. Hello, Jinjuan. Lin took the initiative to take over the conversation, but her expression seemed a bit awkward. In the future, he will be a member of our team and participate in our future actions and tasks, said Watergate. The black-haired boy in front of them was very special, and both Kakashi and Lin knew in their hearts that they understood why their teacher was doing this. There was no resistance in their hearts, nor did they feel that their appearance was actually replacing someone's position. In those futures, their destinies were deeply intertwined. After a brief greeting, the four-person team gathered and headed towards the northern front line of the burning country. Silent all the way. Kakashi has a cold personality, and it seems that Hinata is also a dull person, mostly talking to Shuemen and Lin. However, due to physical fitness reasons, the number of times the team couldn't keep up with the three of them midway was a bit high, which increased the number of times the entire team rested midway. In the dense forest, Watergate was watching the message from the eagle and then said to the crowd, there hasn't been any fighting on the front line yet, and we can still make it tonight. Sitting on the ground drinking water, his body had not fully recovered and he had to run for such a long time, which made him feel a bit overwhelmed. Kakashi approached at this moment and stood on his side. Is there anything I need to do? Kakashi stared at him and pondered, there's something I want to ask you. Zhen stood up and said, I don't know the news about your missing teammate. I really guessed what he wanted to ask. In the future, after taking power, in order to eliminate the hidden dangers of soil and spots, I had Orochimaru intercept the soil and raid the hiding place of spots. The result was that Black Jew escaped, and Bane never appeared again. Upon careful consideration, Bane was already on the brink of death, relying solely on the external demon image to hang his life. Perhaps he died directly after disconnecting from the external demon image. But now that Uchiha is also aware of the future, the possibility of sitting idly by is extremely low. Lin beside her also showed a gloomy expression upon hearing the words. She suddenly felt that even if the future was not good, Dai too would at least come back alive. But now, everything has changed. The group continued their journey and finally arrived at the frontline camp in the northern part of the Fire Kingdom at night. The campsite is very large and is hidden by a huge barrier on the outside. Even if the person coming is Watergate, they need to cross the secret code to enter. The barrier has been opened with a gap, and it is visible to the naked eye that the dense forest ahead seems to have torn open a door to space, filled with tents and bonfires. I followed the Watergate and walked in together. Lord Shuemen is here. A sudden shout rang out, and the camp suddenly became noisy, with countless figures surrounding them. The Wave-Wind Watergate has a high reputation among the Konoha ninjas and has long surpassed the 3 ninjas. Kakashi gestured for truth at this moment, and the two of them quietly left with Lin. Fortunately, at night, no one noticed Hinata Shin who followed the Watergate to the campsite. I've been on the road all day, let's go rest in the tent first. Follow Teacher Watergate, I estimate we'll have a task early tomorrow morning, said Kakashi. At this moment, a group of people took the initiative to walk towards them, blocking their way. Kakashi and Lin were taken aback at the sight, thinking that they were planning to cause real trouble for Hinata. Shuemen had already instructed them to take care of Hinata as much as possible. But soon, the two of them saw that these all had the same characteristics. White-eyed. These people are all from the Hinata clan. Can we speak alone? Said one of the Hinata tribe members to Kakashi. Kakashi glanced at Jin next to him, then turned to the crowded Watergate, hesitated for a moment, and silently nodded. After Kakashi and Lin left, Jin and these Hinata people arrived at a tent, which was a makeshift residence for the Hinata tribe. I saw these Japanese ninjas kneeling on one knee. I've seen a real adult before. There are only 7 or 8 people here, and there are many ninjas from the Hinata clan on the front line. However, due to the strategic significance of White Eyes, they are mostly distributed at various frontline outposts, and their mission rates are also very frequent. In the village, Lord Ianai has sent a message saying that you and Bufeng Shuemen have come to the front line together, and we will swear to protect you to the death. True Gaze scanned the people kneeling in front of him one by one, their ages varied, and each person's face was familiar. Among those of the same age, there are Hinata Fire Gate, Hinata Ilubo, and older Hinata Chingsi. His gaze suddenly stopped on a middle-aged Hinata ninja, examined it for a moment, and then asked, "What's your name?" "Lord Huijen, I am a loyal minister." This person lowered his head in response. "Hinata Eagle Minister, Hinata Branch Member, Upper Ninja in the village." I immediately remembered all the information about this person in my mind, but my eyes became a bit dark and profound. "You don't need to protect me. I will be very safe to follow Lord Shuemen. Just do more work for the village." "Yes." Everyone responded one after another. "I came to the front line just to do what I should do, and you should also do what you should do." "Yes." Everyone continued to respond. "All right, let's all go out." These Hinata people, like those in the village, have no objection to the true words. Eagle Minister stays. Just as he was about to turn around and leave with the crowd, Hinata Eagle suddenly stood still. There are only the two of them left in the tent. "How did you discover me?" Hinata Ingshin asked directly. "Each member of the Hyuga family has the imprint of a bird in a cage, but I didn't feel this aura on you," said Jin slowly. Upon hearing this, Hinata Eagle let out a light smile, and then his figure changed, transforming into another person's appearance. He had long blue and white hair, a beard, and his eyes were also bright white. This is not an ordinary transformation technique, otherwise it would not have been possible to hide here without Kiba's investigation. He slowly spoke up and introduced himself, "My name is, De Guanmu Huanming." Looking at the changes in the person in front of him, he remained calm and said, "On the moon." Watching the seemingly unsurprising appearance, Wu Ming's eyes suddenly showed a frenzy. "You are indeed a destined person." End of this chapter. Chapter 8, follow. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8, follow. The bloodline of Datong Miu village is divided into two branches, one of which is the Hinata clan where the true self resides, which has thrived in the ninja realm to this day. The other group followed Yumura to the moon and inherited the surname of Otakuni, also divided into ancestral and branch families. The purpose of Yumura's trip to the moon was to guard the body of 10 Tails, the outer Dao demon statue. After Yumura's death, there were disagreements between the ancestral and branch families due to different understandings of Yumura's destiny. The Zong family wants to protect the ninja realm created by the 6 immortals, but they believe that the ninjas have been in constant conflict for thousands of years and are no longer worthy of Yumura's protection. They should be destroyed and restarted. In the end, due to the awakening of the reincarnation eye, the external demons were summoned to Earth by Uchiha, which completely triggered the war between the sect and the division. The Zong family was destroyed by the reincarnation weapon of the branch family, and the branch family also came to an end. "Are you the only one left on De Guanmu?" Zhen asked. "There's also my wife," sighed the big wooden shepherd lightly. He also saw the future, the scene of his unborn child sacrificing himself and following Hinata in the future. "Your Highness, you are a destined person." "Destiny?" I actually asked in reverse. "What fate? The fate of dividing families or the fate of the ancestral family?" The expression of Otakuni Kainchi's destiny froze. The fate they believed in when they separated was that Yumura despised the ninjas on Earth and wanted to destroy and restart the world. But is this really the case? After thousands of years of reproduction and development, the large cylindrical trees on the moon have already become a huge population. How could it be that within such a social group, there has always been a distinction between ancestral and separate identities and statuses, without causing any animosity? The so-called fate may just be a rhetoric. De Guanmu's life was clear in his heart, and while he was surprised, he felt a bit ashamed. "Your Highness, do you know all of this?" In the memory of the future, Hinata Shin also completely relied on himself to create the reincarnation eye weapon. This made Otakuni Yuzumi even more convinced in his heart that Hinata was definitely a destined person. Was it because the ancestors of Yumura were completely disappointed with their Otakuni clan that they gave their destiny to the Hinata clan on Earth? Wu Ming thought with a gloomy expression, looking at the young man with black hair and eyes in front of him. He slowly knelt down on one knee, lowered his eyebrows and lowered his head. "I don't know the fate of the ancestors of Yumura. I also got lost in that dispute," he whispered. De Guanmu went astray and only then did he have his current fate. "I just hope that this last bit of blood will not be cut off. Your Highness, I am here to redeem myself." He spoke and slowly lifted his head, his bright white eyes filled with determination. "Please let me follow you. The night sky is clear like the sea, and the bright moon is as white as a mirror. Inside the main tent, Shueimen, Lujiu, and Dingzhua sit here. Have you brought Hinata with you?" Lujiu asked, the 2 scars on his face appearing a bit cold and hard. I let him join my team," Watergate replied. "They have already conveyed some things to each other in the letter." Lujiu is also aware of Watergate's decision. He knows Watergate's character too well and will not intervene in it. What about the diurnal difference? Lord Huoying has temporarily detained him, saying that he can be tried after the war is over. Is that so? Lujiu muttered to himself. "Dear for a long time." Lujiu let out a light smile and muttered in a low voice, "It's imprisonment for Jitsuan Tuanzang and also for Orochimaru. Now that Hinata has killed Hai, it turns out that Lord Hokage is only imprisonment. Shuemen sighed lightly and said, Lujio, you need to understand the hardships of Lord Huoying. Lujio looked up and said in a daze, of course I understand. Now that Kiba is under attack on 3 sides, we cannot engage in internal strife. Moreover, we also need the white eyes of the Hinata clan very much. If it were me, I would have done the same. He then turned his head to look at the water gate and asked calmly, I want to know, can anyone be held responsible for the death of Hai when the war ends? When the war is over, Watergate will succeed the 4th generation Hokage, which is now clear to everyone like them. Lujio is not asking about the practices of the 3rd Hokage, but about the practices of Shuemen. I will make the person who makes a mistake pay the price they deserve, said Watergate in a fair tone. The deer remained speechless for a while before finally pulling over the map on the table. Yunren has already entered the land of Tianji, and the estimated number of ninjas he brought this time is over 10,000. Brother Liang. Shuemen immediately frowned. He has fought against the current 4th generation of Thunder Shadow and knows the difficulty of the other party. Yunin village also has the perfect human pillar power of the 8 tails, and once thrown into the battlefield, the pressure on Mai will not be lower than that on Wanjun village. In the memory of the future, after the end of the war between Kiba and Iwaki, Yunin village took advantage of Kiba's weakness to invade again. The 2 sides finally fought a decisive battle at Kikyu Mountain. In the end, it was through his collaboration with Jiraiya, Yukibo Fuyue, Hinata Shin, and the power of the 9 tails within Kushina that they struggled to win that battle. However, the current situation is completely different from then. Not only is Yunin village an enemy, but there is also Yenin village in the northwest, plus Shain village in the southwest. Yujibo Fuyue has already gone to the west of the Fire Country, preparing to resist the invasion of Sand Ninja there. Zilai also continued to stay at the frontline outpost to resist Inoki. Lujio is now planning to divide his troops to the border between the Fire Kingdom and the Field Kingdom to confront the upcoming Thunder Shadow Brothers. The already weak Konoha still needs to divide its troops into 3 areas, with a large gap in military strength and insufficient high-end combat capabilities, making it almost impossible to win. If there were allies, the situation would be better. But most of the countries in the ninja world are those who prioritize interests and steer according to the situation. Now, Kiba can't have any allies. The most ideal situation would be to divide and break them down. The situation of Yenin should be similar to ours, defeat them first, and then concentrate our forces to solve Yunin and Shain, continued Lujio. I'm afraid. Once these 3 sides launch an attack, we won't be able to hold on at all. Shuemen looked at the map on the table and remained silent. Lujio glanced at the situation and suddenly asked with a smile, why, is it difficult to regret not executing Hinata Shin now? Shuemen knew he was joking, but said, it would be great if there were allies. Lujio also sighed, yes, it would be great if there were allies. The ally Shain, who was originally remembered in the future, has now become an enemy, because the 4th generation Fengying Luo Sha, was killed by Hinata Shin. When will we depart? Watergate asked again, referring to the matter of dividing the troops. Since you have arrived, you will set off tomorrow, said Lujio. Arriving as soon as possible can provide more adequate preparation. Okay. In the early morning, the sky was hazy and bright. The water gate was awakened, and someone informed him that something was happening outside the camp. He quickly got up and rushed out of the barrier. In the dense forest, more than 10 wooden leaf ninjas surrounded a figure dressed in a black robe, with a wooden leaf ninja lying under his feet, creating a tense atmosphere. The person said, I have no hostility. You killed Runya, exclaimed the Konoha ninja beside him angrily. He didn't die, he just fell asleep under my anesthesia. But no one believed his words lightly, and both sides were deadlocked. Just as the atmosphere was suppressed to the extreme, Watergate arrived. The Konoha ninja made way for Watergate. Are you a shining golden light? The black-robed man's voice asked in surprise. Shuemen first glanced at the Konoha ninja under his feet and frowned lightly. The black-robed man immediately grabbed the person with one hand and threw it towards the direction of the water gate. The nearby Konoha ninja quickly stepped forward to take it and placed it on the ground for some exploration before exclaiming in surprise, "Runya is indeed still alive. Who are you?" Watergate asked. The black-robed man slowly pulled off his hood, revealing an exceptionally young and handsome face, with his red hair particularly eye-catching. "I'm looking for Hinata Shin." Cover image at the top of the comments section, end of this chapter. Chapter 9, Red Sand. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9, Red Sand. Looking for Hinata Shin. Shuemen's thoughts flew around in his heart, and he immediately guessed something. There are only two types of people who are interested in Hinata now. One is Yun-in and Sha-in, who come to seek revenge and wish Hinata would die. Another fear is similar to what the Hinata clan thought, believing that Hinata was truly the savior of the world and came to follow. The probability of this guy coming to seek revenge seems unlikely. And just as Watergate was contemplating, the other party raised their hand and threw a scroll, which was firmly held in Watergate's hand. "What is this?" Watergate asked calmly. "Just take a look and you'll know," the person said calmly. Shuemen forcefully pinched the scroll, confirming that there were no chakra waves on it, and slowly unfolded it. Then, his expression became uncontrollable and he was stunned. Because the content of this scroll contains detailed information such as the marching route, garrison location, and the leader ninjas of each unit. The other party easily threw it to him, even without any intention of negotiation. Shuemen's heart instantly doubted the authenticity of this information, but if it were the enemy's strategy, it would be too clumsy. "Where is Hinata really?" the red-haired boy asked again. "What are you asking him for?" Shuemen asked in a deep voice. "He can do many things in the future, and there happens to be something that interests me," the other person said. At this moment, a Konoha ninja suddenly arrived and whispered in the ear of Shuemen, "There are no other enemies approaching." Shuemen examined the young boy again and asked, "Who are you?" "My name is Scorpion." After a moment of contemplation, Shuemen immediately realized something. "Are you Sha-Yin's traitor?" The Scorpion admitted without hesitation. "In the realm of ninja, rebellious ninjas are not welcomed wherever they go. However, the relationship between Mai and Sha-Yin seems to have become the confidence that Scorpions dare to come." Watergate made a condition. "I can take you to see him, but you must give up resistance and accept our control." "Impossible." The Scorpion refused directly. "I have already given the exchange terms," Shuemen said, "based solely on this information that is not known to be true or false. Do you want us to easily believe you?" The Scorpion said indifferently, "That's your own strength." Chi volume. Shuemen's eyes were slightly dim. "Hua," the wind rustled the leaves in the forest, and no one spoke here. The two sides were still in a standoff. In a moment, Shuemen said to a Konoha ninja beside him, "Go and let Kakashi bring Hinata out." "Yes." Later, Shuemen raised his voice and said to the group of Konoha ninjas, "You go back first." The barrier was once again opened, and the ninjas who were originally surrounded by the Scorpions returned to the camp. Soon, Kakashi came out with Hinata Shin. "Lord Shuemen," Jin first greeted Shuemen. Shuemen said, "Truly, this person is named to see you." At the moment he came out, he saw the Scorpion standing there. His red hair was too eye-catching, and there were only a few red-haired people in the ninja world. Looking at his age and appearance, he also guessed his identity in his heart. "I don't know," Jin shook his head and said. "He knows you. Isn't everyone in this world aware of me?" At the same time, Scorpion was also looking at the young man with black hair, and after confirming that he was the person in his memory, he took the initiative to introduce himself and said, "My name is Scorpion." Speaking, he took out another scroll and gently unfolded it horizontally in his hand, revealing the seal pattern on it to Junho Watergate. There was a prominent 3 character on it. Bang! The white smoke suddenly rose, and Kakashi became alert at the sight, thinking that the other party was going to take action. And as the smoke dissipated, a puppet resembling a real person appeared beside the scorpion. Seeing this person, Shuiman's eyes immediately froze. The scorpion slowly said, "This is the 3 generations Wind Shadow, who died in my hands. I made him a unique human puppet, which can replicate his ninjutsu during his lifetime." He lifted it lightly with one hand, and the chakra extending between his 5 fingers first connected to this puppet. Then, he saw the Wind Shadow puppet rise into the air, condensing more than 10 long sand and iron spears, which swooped down from the sky and pierced the ground in front of Jin densely. The scorpion seemed to be deliberately showcasing his masterpiece, and then manipulating the Wind Shadow puppet to return to his side. The long spears made of sand and iron collapsed into black iron sand, dispersing in the air. "How's it going?" Scorpion's eyes were tightly fixed, as if he wanted to see a hint of amazement on his face. But unfortunately, he was disappointed. "Very good." I nodded lightly and spoke in a plain tone. The scorpion's face darkened slightly, and the seal puppet next to him turned into white smoke and disappeared with a loud bang. At this moment, Shuiman had already furrowed his brow. In his view, making people into puppets was extremely cruel. This scorpion was also a traitor to Sha Yin's tolerance, personally killing his own shadow, which triggered the outbreak of the Third Ninja World War. It can be said that he was a heinous person. The scorpion said to Jin again, "We can explore the eternal mysteries of machinery and life together." In the future, Hinata Makoto utilized the puppetry technique of the moon's giant cylinder wood, as well as the human biotechnology of the pharmacist's pouch, combined with the chakra of the tail beast, to create a supergiant mecha similar to an EVA body, which became his capital for dominating the world. This is not a dreamy or unrealistic thing. I truly remember that in the more distant future of the Hokage original, the ninja world also developed technologies such as computers and even artificial humans. Scorpion realized that he was negotiating with Hinata Shin, which was also one of his purposes for coming here. Jin no longer paid attention to him, but asked Shuiman, "Shuiman Lord, how should we deal with the rebellious tolerance of Sha Yin?" Shuiman also had a slight surprise. "He came to find you." With a strange expression on his face, he asked in reverse, "Isn't he someone who poses a threat to the village?" Scorpio furrowed his brows as he listened to their conversation, and in the next moment, he suddenly remembered that in the future, this wave of wind and Watergate and Hinata seemed to have a hostile relationship. Now Shuimen pondered and said, "Do you want to become a friend of Kiba?" Scorpio doesn't care about what Kiba is like, but he also realizes that Hinata may not be in such a good situation now. "Not bad," he said calmly. "Are those just now not sincere enough?" He refers to the intelligence of the sand ninjas. If the information in that scroll is true, it would undoubtedly be of great help to the wooden leaves. Shuimen thought of Kiba's current situation, and although he didn't like the person in front of him anymore, he still said, "If all the information you gave is true, then Kiba can recognize you as a friend." The scorpion continued, "The extinction of the leaves of wood is not good for me. On the contrary, I am happy to see Saren fall." Listening to the words of the scorpion, it suddenly occurred to me that the scorpion's parents seem to have died at the hands of White Fang. But it doesn't matter. This guy came so openly, even if he really wanted to follow him, it would be of no use to the current truth. That's too foolish. Standing quietly beside the water gate, without saying a word. In the end, Scorpion and Watergate reached an agreement that Scorpion could enter the camp of Mai, but would need to be sealed and regulated by the next seal. Only when Kiba confirms the authenticity of this information about Saren will the two sides officially become friends and cooperate. At first, Scorpion was unwilling, but because he had already learned about the location of Kiba's military camp, Watergate could not easily let him go. If he insisted on leaving, there would definitely be a battle. No matter how confident he is, he cannot leave safely in the face of the Golden Flash and the army of thousands of Kiba soldiers. He had no choice but to compromise. Huoying itself is already a master of sealing techniques, so there is no need to fake it. The group returned to the camp. Just as Huoying went to see Lu Jiu with the information given by Scorpion, Lu Jiu gave him a letter first. It was sent from Lord Zilai's side. Huoying took a look and his eyes showed an unexpected expression. Is this an ally? Lu Jiu nodded lightly and said, Master Zilai said he is an ally. More than a dozen allies. Can only be said to be better than nothing. Huoying carefully glanced at the content of the letter again and thought it was written by his teacher himself. He asked, do they have anything special? Lu Jiu asked in reverse, is that Scorpion of the Red Sand coming towards Hinata? Huoying nodded and handed over the scroll of the Scorpion. Lu Jiu sighed and said, this mercenary organization called Shao should also be here for him. The cover is placed at the top of the comment section, and the comment at the top is a narrow line with the word top on top of the first line, which can be seen by clicking on it. End of this chapter. Chapter 10, Dawn Night. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10, Dawn Night. Huoying and Lu Jiu sent orders, and more than half of the ninjas in the camp set off to establish frontline outposts at the border between the Fire Kingdom and the Field Kingdom in the northeast. Nearly 3,000 ninjas set off in a grand manner, with Huoying as the overall leader leading the vanguard team and really following along. Lu Jiu can only divide his troops. Considering the strength of Yunren, the force of 3,000 people is already the largest compared to Yuji Bofuyue. The war has been going on for so long, and the number of ninjas that Kiba has deployed to the front line is now less than 10,000. Many have sacrificed their lives, and many have suffered serious injuries on the front line and lost their combat power, retreating to their villages. Merging three forces together to face a village cannot be considered advantageous, and now dividing into three greatly weakens Kiba's defensive strength. In the upcoming war, Kiba will no longer have the initiative. Because we had to go to the border earlier, Huoying didn't slow down too much, so we had to barely follow and hang at the back of the advance team. There was no rest along the way, fortunately the total distance was not long. After arriving here, Huoying continued to survey the terrain with Kakashima non-stop, and after resting in place for a moment, they followed suit. The main force also arrived 2 hours later, and after handing over to the border ninjas here, they began to recamp and deploy. And with them came the mercenary ninja named Shao. The leader is an extremely young male, probably about the same age as a Scorpion, but 17 or 18 years old, with short orange hair and a sunny and cheerful smile on his face. These people are all wearing black robes, but they are not wearing forehead protectors. You are the Golden Flash, Lord Bufeng Huoying. Mihiko ran to Huoying with great familiarity and warmly greeted him. Are you Mr. Miyako? Yes. Miyako held Huoying's hand as if he had seen a celebrity. We are all students of teacher Zelaya. The other two also came to Mihiko's side, a red-haired boy and a beautiful girl with light blue short hair. Huoying's eyes immediately froze on Changmen's body, and his special pair of eyes could hardly attract attention. This is Changmen, this is Xiaonan, we are all classmates. Hello, Huoying nodded lightly. After being polite to each other, Huoying said in a formal tone, thank you for coming to help Muyi at this time. Mihiko scratched his head and said with a hint of embarrassment, we're here, and there's a half-intention of defecting. Oh. Miyako sighed and said, half-hidden mountain pepper fish is wanted by us. It's already difficult for us to establish a foothold in the rain country. Huoying pondered silently and said calmly, do you want to add Konoha? He glanced at the other members of the Shao organization. He was not very familiar with Zhao's style, but the foundation of hiring ninjas was not very clean. Miyako immediately said, I dare not have such extravagance. I just hope that after the war ends, we can temporarily stay within the fire country. Shuemen nodded and said, of course there's no problem with this. Thank you, Lord Shuemen. Miyako smiled happily. Shuemen also smiled and said, since you are from the same sect, don't be so reserved. Just call me Shuemen. By the way, Mr. Watergate, I would like to inquire about someone from you. Shuemen's eyes flickered slightly. Is the sun true? Mayan smiled foolishly and said, you guessed so accurately. Shuemen smiled and then gestured towards a figure in the distance who was helping to set up camp. He's right there. Is it convenient for me to go over and chat with him for a while? Please do as you please. Mayan, Changmen, and Xiaonan walked over at the same time, while Shuemen was lost in thought. These people who came towards Hinata are expected to have more in the future. Once there are more followers, their thoughts may gradually change. Shuemen looked at the figure in the distance with a calm expression. Truly chiseling a wooden stake into the soil, a sound suddenly rang in my ear. Are you Hinata Shin? He turned his head to look at orange hair, red hair, blue hair. Reincarnation eyes, paper flowers. Is there anything I need to do? Hello, my name is Mayan. This is Changmen and Xiaonan. In the future, Hinata Shin once helped them take control of rain-hidden thoughts and eliminate the half-hidden mountain pepper fish. After Hinata Masamune conquered the 5 major powers and unified the world, all 3 of them became subordinates of Hinata Masamune. World peace is a wish that Miyako dares not pursue. He knows he never has the courage and ability to govern the rain country well in the future, which is already his lifelong wish. Hinata really did what he couldn't do. Looking at the young boy in front of him who was even younger than himself, Miyako was momentarily lost in thought. If it's okay, please don't interfere with my work, Jin said. Mayan suddenly regained his senses, then saw no one around and couldn't help but ask, will you still achieve that level like in the future? That's just the me you imagined, not the real me, said Jinping, this world needs a savior. Miyako immediately said. War should have been eradicated long ago. Killing should also have stopped, and people should not be like this now. Miyako's emotions suddenly became a bit excited, but he interrupted his impulse to appeal to his vision and said, you're right. He looked into Mihiko's eyes and calmly said, I also believe that Lord Shuemen would be such a person. After speaking, he turned around and struck the wooden stake again with a hammer. After a brief moment of unconsciousness, Miyako suddenly laughed again. It's our rudeness. I can't help but want to see you once. Maybe it's causing you trouble, I'm really sorry. He could tell that he really didn't want to do anything noteworthy right now. Muyi estimated that countless pairs of eyes were on this young man, and he was probably constantly piercing his back. It's okay, Jin shook his head slowly. Are you here to help Kiba fight? Mihiko nodded. I should be grateful to you all. Mihiko hesitated for a moment and then said, if you have any access to our place, please feel free to speak up. But I didn't take this and continued with my work. Mihiko and the others had to turn around and leave when they saw the situation. The temporary camp was quickly built, and many reconnaissance teams were dispatched by Watergate. However, due to losing their eyesight, they were unable to handle such tasks and stayed in the camp. The moon is bright and the stars are sparse. There is no bonfire in the campsite, making it particularly cold. When he woke up from the tent and walked under a big tree, a figure silently appeared next to him. Your Highness Shen, Yinren's troops are nearly 4 times the strength of our defense line. They are now all stationed within the territory of Qinji Kingdom. Once a comprehensive attack is launched, the probability of us being able to withstand it is extremely low. There was really no response. After the release, I returned to the tent and continued to sleep. When he is not supposed to speak or do things, he won't do anything unnecessary. But it was never him who made the choice. No matter how many people die, they will not disturb their dreams. End of this chapter.